Alex Pereira has that aura, has that power, the touch of death. Prochazka was getting the better of him the whole time. I feel like he got caught. Definitely an early stoppage. He will just keep pushing the pace and will just go until he dies. Pyfer just got fraud checked. What's happening, boys? Coming off a good prediction of last card, Whitaker versus Alaskarov, going 9 out of 11. Calling the Whitaker early KO. I had it second round, but it happened in the first round, but still the same. Ozdemir, first round knockout, had it. Getting Naimov wrong, which he was kind of winning that fight, but ended up getting choked out. And then Pavlovich getting decisioned by Volkov, which I had low confidence in Pavlovich, but we move on to UFC 303, Pereira versus Prochazka 2. Let's get into it. First fight up. Ricky Simón versus Vinicius Oliveira. I'd say that this is one of those fights where Oliveira is going to get tested. Ricky Simón has good wrestling. He mixes in chain wrestling. He has decent power on the feet. Oliveira is tough. He has good strikes. He is powerful. He kind of is a finish or get finished. In his last fight, he was going to go to a decision and just last second knocked out Sopaj. I had Sopaj winning that fight, and he honestly was winning that fight, gassed out, and Oliveira knocked him out. I'd say that Ricky Simón's path to victory is just too easy here. Ricky Simón should just take him down, control him, and possibly finish him on the ground, maybe with a submission or a TKO. But my pick is going to be Simón by decision. Next fight up, Carlos Hernandez versus Ray Tsuruya. I'd say that Tsuruya, he looks good. This possibly could be a fraud check where he just hasn't faced anybody at the level of Hernandez, even though Hernandez isn't some top guy. He's definitely fought tough people, Taitsuru, Taira, and Alan Nascimento. Those are tough matchups, and he has some wins in the UFC. I'd say that his toughness is what can get him through a decision. Tsuruya, I feel like you kind of have to pick him. The odds are way too wide for my liking, just because he's a debuting fighter, road to UFC. Hasn't fought anybody crazy good. I feel like he can get the finish just because he looks for the finish a lot. He looks for takedowns, will go for chain wrestling, and he'll pretty much get the takedown for sure. It's just whether he can actually submit him or not. I'd say that he can, and my pick is going to be Tsuruya by submission in the first round. Next up, Andrei Arlovski versus Buday. I honestly don't see the love for Buday. Obviously, Arlovski is 45 years old. He's on the end of his career on a 3-loss streak, but De Lima beats Buday. Mays probably beats Buday, but possibly that's a close fight, I'd say. Acosta, I'd say beats Buday. Not getting knocked out by Acosta is pretty good, but I feel like his power is a bit overrated, but getting knocked out and submitted he got dropped in the Lima fight and then submitted. I'd say that his chin is good enough for Buday's power. I'd say Buday is kind of just a volume puncher, and I feel like that Arlovski is getting way underrated here. I don't see how he doesn't at least take a round, and I feel like this fight is going to decision. I feel like a lot of Arlovski's wins have been by decision. Buday, he kind of just grinds people, pushes them against the fence, and that's how he gets his victories. His last fight against Shamil gets finished. He kind of just got overwhelmed in that fight, which I don't think Arlovski's got to overwhelm him, but Arlovski has really good technique. He's still a top level guy, or he's not still a top level guy, but he has been at the top level. Buday, he can't get in the top 5 for sure, so I'd say I'm just gonna be backing Arlovski because the odds are way too wide, and I kind of just favor his technique and just him being able to pick his shots, and he's definitely dealt with people like Buday, so my pick is gonna be Arlovski by decision. Next fight up, Waterson-Gomez versus Gillian Robertson. I'd say that this is just dependent on if Robertson can get the takedown, and I don't think so. I think Michelle Waterson has good takedown defense. She's faced top level people. I'd say that her 4 losses in a row, these are not like horrendous losses. The worst one is definitely the Pinero, but I think that everybody else. I mean, she lost to Rodriguez twice. I think that all three of these people beat Robertson. Robertson has really good submission game. She has decent takedowns and will go for the takedowns. But I feel like Michelle Waterson will be able to utilize her kicks pretty well, keep the distance, use her takedown defense to avoid going on the ground, and just kind of like just outpoint her on the feet by a little bit. And I'd say this is a close fight. I think it's going decision. And I favor Waterson in this fight, so my pick is going to be Waterson by decision. Next fight up, Payton Talbott versus Yanis Ghemmouri. There's not much to say about this. Talbot is like minus 1600. Not really worth breaking down this fight. I mean, Talbot is a really young prospect that looks really good, powerful, picks his shots. Yanis, his last fight, he got KO'd by Gomez, but that was some bullshit. He got hit right in the nuts, and then the ref did some weird shit and stopped it. I think he's possibly tough enough or just safe enough to go to a decision, just because Talbot has gone to a decision with people before. But I'd say that Talbot's gonna find his shot. Second round, Talbot by second round knockout. Next fight up, Charles Jourdain versus Sean Silva. I'd say that this is a close fight. Big step up for Silva. He's been facing people that are lower level. Win a decision with this guy. I'd say that guy's tough. It's a decent win. I think that Silva's power is going to be the edge here. He's not too he doesn't have too much output. Jourdain has faced good competition or just been in the UFC for a while, so he's proven. I'd say that his losses don't bode too well, just with Silva being an unknown. Him being able to get takedowns, have decent power, I feel like is going to just edge it out. I think it's going to go to this decision because Jourdain is pretty tough. He doesn't really get finished much. And Silva's just not enough output to pick his shots enough where he's overwhelming him. So I think that this fight's got to go to decision, and I'm going to be picking Jean Silva. Next fight up, Cub Swanson versus Andrei Fili. I think this is another close one, but the odds don't really show that. I feel like Cub Swanson is like a huge underdog, and Fili is his chin is questionable. Like I think that putting money on Fili is just way too risky. I feel like if you're going to bet on this fight, it is on Swanson. I think that this fight is kind of tailored to go by finish and knocking each other out, because looking at Swanson got knocked out by Martinez by leg kicks, knocked out Darren Elkins, got knocked out by Giga, knocked out Pineda, knockout, knockout, decision, knockout. I'd say that Swanson probably has the power edge and he has a chin edge, but he is old. It's hard to trust him. He's clearly on his way out. Fili, he's he's not trustable. I mean, touchy Fili. I don't know. I'd say Cub gets this done by knockout in the first round is gonna be my pick. But the confidence is pretty low. But I feel like the fact that he's such a big underdog is going to make me want to bet on him. So Swanson by first round knockout is going to be my pick. Next fight up, Joe Pyfer versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Pyfer just got fraud checked. I mean, I was really confident in him in the Hermanson fight. Got fraud checked. And I'd say Hermanson is just the better version of Barriault. I don't know. I'd say Marc-Andre Barriault, like, he just gets hit too much. He is really tough. Will walk forward, keep pushing the pace. I think if this was like a 5-round fight, I would definitely be picking Barriault. At first, I was picking Barriault, but Pyfer is just too powerful. Has takedowns, has a good ground game. I'd say that Barriault is tough enough to survive, though, just because I feel like Pyfer is probably cautious with that loss that he just had. It was a pretty bad loss. He won the first 2 rounds and got pretty not destroyed, but he was a clear 3 rounds for Hermanson. And I'd say he might be a little cautious, might take things a little slower, pick his shots more, and just edge, not edge, I'd say probably a 29-28 decision because I think third round things might turn around and Barriault might start picking up the pace and putting Pyfer in some trouble. So my pick is going to be Pyfer by decision. First fight on the main event. Ian Machado Garry versus Michael Page. I'd say I'm honestly pretty confident in Garry. I feel like his distance control, his strikes, his kicks is good enough to just makes his strikes like nothing really. Because honestly, he stays on the outside and then bolts in. Page is pretty quick, but I'd say that Garry will be able to control the distance. Just kick him up until Page decides to come in and then land his shots there too. I think that Garry can get takedowns as well, so that's like another big thing. I feel like that edges me to go towards Garry. Page is pretty crafty. I feel like he's known for like having crazy knockouts, but I'd say like when was the last time? I mean, he knocked this guy out, decision, KO. I feel like he has a lot of decisions, and against a person like Garry, I feel like this fight will be a little bit slower. A lot of kicks, and I feel like if anybody is gonna knock somebody out, it would be probably Garry knocking out Page. So having the knockout threat, having the wrestling threat, and having the distance control, I feel like I have to go Garry here. My pick is gonna be Garry by decision. Next up, Mayra Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson. I'd say that this is probably my most confident pick on the card. I don't know. I think Silva opened up as like a minus 200, and then now she's like at a pick'em minus 110. I don't see that really. I was pretty big on Chiasson before this fight. I really like her. I picked her against uh, Penny. I'd say that she has good grappling. She'll go for the takedowns, has good output. She is pretty big. She's going to be bigger than Silva since she's even fought at like 145, I believe. But I feel like Silva is really being underrated here with her submission threat. I feel like the fact that Chiasson goes for takedowns, if she even decides to go for a takedown in this fight, she's in big trouble. And Silva's going to go for her own takedown. So I think that this fight will end up on the mat. And I'm going to be favoring Silva here by submission. I feel like she's really crafty. I feel like the fact that this is a no contest and maybe she was on steroids or taking PEDs, but the fact that she submitted Holly Holm, which is really hard to finish, I feel like Chiasson is definitely not the fighter that Holly Holm is, even her being like 42 or 45 or whatever she is. She's probably like 40. But my pick is going to be Silva by submission in the first round. Next fight up, Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. I honestly don't know what the fuck is going on with Dolidze's odds. And how are people even picking Dolidze? First, this fight is at 205. He's a 185er. He has no striking. I feel like who's the fighter I'm trying to think of? He's kind of just like a person who can't take you down and will stay on the feet, and if he goes to the ground, you're in big trouble. But like he's just throwing wild swinging punches. Like, is he gonna knock out Smith? I mean, Smith can get finished pretty easy. Towards the end of the fight, he somewhat gives up. But I think Smith being at 205, being proven, I don't see how he's the underdog in this fight. Roman Dolidze is not that good. He had a decently close fight with Vittori, I believe. Like all these knockouts that he's doing, like Phil Hawes, okay knockout. Jack Hermanson, that's a good knockout. Kyle Dawkins, but Marvin Vittori close decision. But I don't know. I don't really see the love for Dolidze. He is tough. He will survive. I don't even think he's gotten finished before. But my pick is gonna be Silva. Not Silva. My pick is gonna be Smith by second round KO. Co-main event of UFC 303, Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez. Pretty much the whole time I was on Lopez watching the tape, I'd say that Ortega just hasn't been finished. Like Lopez is a really big prospect. He's really exciting. I really like him. Um, he is knocking out people. Knocked out Sadiq Yusuf, really good win. Just bum rushed him. Paz Bettini, same thing. He's knocking out and finishing these people quick. But the thing is, who is Brian Ortega again finished by? I think he got finished by Max, right? Yeah, he was getting pieced up, and that was a 5 round fight too. And the fact that he was able to survive Max's beating, Diego Lopez is definitely not the striker of Max, not the striker of Volkanovski, and he gave Volkanovski trouble. He had 2 submission attempts in there that pretty much anybody else would have been submitted by. His submission threat is nasty. I honestly don't really see either one of them submitting someone, but if someone was to get submitted, I feel like it would be Lopez for sure. Knockout threat is for Lopez. Striking advantage is probably for Lopez just because he has the power advantage. But experience, dog tough, is definitely more proven for Ortega. If you look at Lopez's um, fights, he lost to Evloev, which was a good matchup and a good fight. He had his moments, but he definitely lost that fight. But that's not too bad of a feat because Evloev is good. But he also lost to Joe Anderson Brito, which is not the worst loss, but losing to him kind of ceilings you out, and you kind of get with his 3 finishes, you're kind of forgetting that. I feel like he's definitely lost to people that are worse than Ortega or just anybody that's in the top 5. And Ortega's been proven. He's tough. He has wrestling. He has. I think that he will get takedowns in this fight, and he'll be able to probably control him. I see this fight going decision, and I'm gonna be picking Brian Ortega by decision. The main event: Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prochazka. I feel like this is okay, this one's a hard one. I feel like I really like both the fighters. Watching the tape, watching the fight back, their first fight back. I don't know. Prochazka was getting the better of him the whole time. I feel like he got caught. Or I feel like it was definitely an early stoppage. I feel like a lot of people would agree with that. Alex Pereira has that aura. He has that threat. He has that power, the touch of death. But I feel like Prochazka, he has the advantages to win this fight. He has a really weird style and a funky style where he's really doing stuff that it's hard to predict, which might throw off Pereira, and that's maybe why he was losing the first and the half of the second round. I'd say that the fact that Prochazka can take him down, and he did take him down already, being able to control him, I think this fight is definitely going ended by finish. And I'm really favoring Prochazka here, even though he got knocked out by him last time. I feel like his toughness that he showed in the rack kick fight. Obviously, if Alex Pereira is landing the same shots as rack kick, he's probably lights out for him. But I feel like the calf kick is a struggle for him. But he kind of just keeps walking forward, and if he feels like he's getting cracked up, he'll just keep pushing the pace and will just go until he dies because he's just that guy. I really like Prochazka, and my pick is gonna be Prochazka by second round knockout. And that's the quick picks breakdown of UFC 303 Prochazka versus Pereira 2. Thanks for watching and have a good one.